Welcome back to the panel's choice. Here we ask each panel member to pick a topic from this week that they feel is important to discuss. We'll start with Donna's pick. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is under increased pressure to scrap the so-called Greene taxes, which are causing soaring prices and a cost of living crisis in the UK. Donna, tell us about it.
Well, you know, environmentalists have forced a lot of these prime ministers to increase their Green New Deal initiatives. And what's happening in the UK, which should be a wake-up call for the Biden administration, is that it's forcing the cost of energy in those countries where the people can't afford it. Right now, 1 in 4 households in the UK can't afford their energy bills. And what's more devastating is they're having to make choices like, do I feed my family and eat a meal, or do I pay my energy bill? And it's more devastating for those on a pension, like your elderly, because what you have is actually the elderly dying from not being able to afford energy in their households. And environmentalists don't care because they just want whatever initiative they want to put through. So they declare war.
What is it about the taxes specifically? Like, what is it just tax on energy, or what is it?
It is. So what they have is a penalty for any energy costs, like natural gas, coal, nuclear power. And it's up to 25% plus a value added tax on it. And think of it like a sin tax. You have cigarettes, and in order to discourage people from buying cigarettes, they add in taxes so it becomes unaffordable. Well, the alternative is more expensive, like wind and solar. It's not reliable, it's more expensive, and so people are forced into these choices where, do I eat or do I pay my energy bill? Now, in a place like the UK where it's cold, this is not an option. And so why are we starving a population so that people basically can see frogs on their hiking trails is basically what we're doing.
Wow, that's astonishing. Thank you very much for the topic. Next, we have John Hines' pick. John spoke with Senator Roger Marshall, a medical doctor, regarding therapeutics and why this administration has done little to support research and distribution on therapeutics rather than emphasizing masks and vaccines. Take a look.
You know, the big frustration for myself, like everybody, is why haven't we done a warp speed for therapeutics? Why haven't we, we realized at some point in time that vaccines alone and maskings, I don't know that they ever worked, along with testing was going to be enough. So sure enough, we ran out of the test. Whenever you have a big uptick of over 1 million people, there's just, in one day, there's no way you can keep up with the test, but there's no therapeutics out there for Americans. How can we be 2 years into this? It's been 2 years this week since I started.
And trillions of dollars, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a great point. So we have spent, the federal government, over $80 billion on testing, but only $15 billion on therapeutics.
John, tell us about your topic.
Well, the predicate of that is that over the holidays, after Christmas, Roger Marshall, he's a U.S. Senator from Kansas, also a doctor for many decades in Kansas. His daughter has asthma, and she was contracting what appeared to be COVID, and so she couldn't breathe. So this is a father who's a doctor. He knows everybody to call in the medical profession in Kansas. They tried to get a test. They could not get a test for like a day. This is a doctor who presumably knows people to call. And then they couldn't get the antibody treatment. They couldn't get any kind of the therapeutics. There were none to be had. And if you're a medical doctor and a U.S. Senator and you know people to call and you can't get any of these things, think about what other people are doing and what they're coming up against. So this is a father who's panicked because his daughter has asthma. She looks like she's got COVID. She cannot breathe. They're driving to the emergency room. He's on the phone, and he said this is what he discovered. And he discovered that we have not funded therapeutics. We're all fixated, and the Biden administration is fixated on masks. They're fixated on COVID, but they are not fixated on therapeutics. And so this is where this is going to go eventually as more and more people find out about this.
Do you think this is because, I don't know if it's because, but do you think it could potentially be a problem of perspective, where they want COVID to be a life and death situation, so they're so focused on prevention or death?
Well, that's entirely possible. It is entirely possible, and they want to motivate people to get the vaccine. That's what they've been pushing. But the reality is, and the reality that a lot of people are brushing up against, like a U.S. senator and a doctor, is that therapeutics are actually probably more effective. And nobody has been, the Biden administration certainly has not made that an emphasis. They don't talk about it. And it's because one reason could be they want people to get vaccinated. So.
Interesting. Thank you for the topic. Derrick brings us this pic. Comedian Patton Oswalt posted pictures of he and his longtime friend Dave Chappelle on social media. Naturally, the woke mob turned its anger towards Oswalt, who then apologized and defended the photos. Derrick, can people with differing opinions still be friends?
Apparently not. And the thing about it is, Patton Oswalt, he's noted for his characters in different kids' movies, but mostly noted for his role that he played on King of Queens as Doug's best friend. All right, so he's a very nice guy. And he and Dave Chappelle have been friends, as he said, since they were teens. And so now he had to issue he felt as though he needed to issue an apology to the LGBTQRSTUV, the woke mob, because of his friendship with Dave Chappelle. And it just says, at what point do we draw the line or push back? And we have a standard that we all should live by and agree on. And so that should not be left up to some people that don't even know who you are.
Right, and it seems like the circle of people that you're allowed to associate with is getting smaller and smaller. Well, sure, then there's the rest of us who do whatever we want. But as far as like the media and the unfortunate part, does that impact people's careers, which impacts their livelihoods? And what happens next?
What happens next is, I guess, his friends accept him again. But it makes no sense that we have to bow down to these people. We should stop.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, especially it almost feels like the media, or Hollywood, I should say, seems a bit betrayed that someone in Hollywood might dare to think for themselves.
But the thing about it is, Dave Chappelle had a special, his recent special, where he actually focused on the LGBT community, and he did a great job in terms of how he structured the entire program, to where he talked about this community in the beginning and ended the show with a young lady who he asked to open up his show, who actually, the LGBT community came down so hard on her that she committed suicide.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. Yes. And so he was like, you guys need to stop, pushing down on us, and look what happened to her. And so those are the kind of things that this community, this woke mob is doing to people that, when those kind of situations happen, you never hear about it. But you do hear about Patton Oswalt having to apologize just for taking a picture with Dave Chappelle.
Crazy. That's obviously dangerous to that young woman.
And so Dave Chappelle set up a trust fund for the young lady's daughter that he's going to give her the money once she turns 21.
That's astonishing and terrifying. How have they gotten away with it for so long?
It seems like it's growing. And so the other thing that they use that I don't like is oftentimes they try to equate their experience with that of African Americans, and it's not the same.
It is not the same.
It's not the same.
So, all right. Last but not least, John Schweppe chose Twitter-censored Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. John, tell us about this.
Yeah, this week Twitter took another step in their quest for total control of the narrative, censored Marjorie Taylor Greene. She actually was citing government data about COVID-19 and some of the issues with vaccine injury, and that was a ban. Like, they decided that a member of Congress, sitting member of Congress, can't be on their platform. And obviously this isn't the first time this has happened. They banned the President of the United States.
Right.
They've banned doctors who have shared, their... they banned me, actually, about a week ago for advocating for legislation. So, this has kind of become what they're doing. Big tech is coming down harder and harder on conservatives. And the good news is we actually saw leader Kevin McCarthy this week come out and say we need a First Amendment standard online. We have to pass something in the new Congress when Republicans take back the House. So that was very encouraging, and hopefully we can get something done there.
That is encouraging. It's a little discouraging that it's taken so long to get to this point. But what happens when someone gets canceled? Right now they have no recourse, and we're kind of just watching everyone's First Amendment rights dwindle away.
Yeah, well, what the libertarian, big tech funded folks will tell you is that, you know, it's okay if it's private companies doing it. But of course, we know, and constitutional precedent shows this too, that if private companies are acting on behalf of state actors, then they're themselves state actors, and they are violating our First Amendment rights. So I think the key here is actually passing a Section 230 reform that works, that forces these companies to host speech, political speech and religious speech, and treats it like the public square, which it is.
Right. And it used to be that conservatives would say, hey, we're getting censored. And everyone would say, no, you're not getting censored. And they kept pacifying everybody, saying it's not true. It's all in your imagination. Well, once they kick the president of the United States off the platform, and it's very clear they're censoring conservative legislators and Americans, what is the narrative now? Because they can't say we're not doing it, because everyone can see that they're doing it. Now is it's for your own good because they have scary ideas.
Well, this is actually something the left does frequently, over and over and over again. It's their modus operandi, where they'll say, no, this never happens, and then once the evidence that it's happening is too much, then they say, well, it's good it's happening.
Right.
And so that's what we're seeing now with the banning is, well, President Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a threat to democracy. We have to kick these guys off. The only way to save free speech and free expression is to ban it.
Do you think?
Protect you.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for looking out for me. Do you think that Americans are picking up on it? Certainly conservatives are, but do you think those in the middle and maybe even some on the left realize what's happening?
I think the conservative base certainly is, and I think they're becoming much more animated about the problem of institutional power and what these guys can do.
Right.
But it is something we still have a lot of education to do. I don't know if people understand just how much they're being manipulated by corporations and media and all of that.
It's scary. Well, thank you for the topic. Don't go anywhere. When we come back from the break, we've got Don't Be Fooled and my closing argument. We'll be right back.